Hey guys, apologize ahead of time for if this is lower quality than usual, but we're going to get right into it. The new spoilers came out. Before we get into those, in case you guys missed it, Force of Will Mexico, I believe it was, released the insert art for the booster boxes, so we're going to real quick look at that. The first one obviously is the ruler we've already seen for one side of the book. We've got some sort of, I think it's a mermaid or something with horns, whatever the blue ruler is. We have the red ruler guy, which is the gentleman that appears in the middle of the two sides of the book. We have the other side of the book, and something to do with Idrisil and a dragon. It kind of reminds me of what happens when Zerg take over like a building or something, and it gets all weird and funky. So maybe we're seeing a prequel to StarCraft or something. That'd be pretty awesome. So get right into the spoilers. So first up we have Phyla, Genius Ripoff Artist. So she's a 3-cost 4/8 human. She does have the Will of Hope attribute. So if you missed last week's spoilers, last week they introduced the Will of Hope, which it doesn't do anything on its own, but it pairs with, for example, last week's ruler, which is able to pay for Will of Hope with any color you want as long as you have that ruler. There's also some other cards that combo off of Will of Hope cards. So she has that, so she's able to work with that ruler, and she has the 1-cost, 1 red tap ability to put a token copy of another target resonator you control into your field. At the next end of turn, that token's controller banishes it. So that's pretty interesting. That could come into effect mainly for stuff with swiftness, or if you have, for example, the Fairy Tale Library Alexandria, which gives resonators with a certain race swiftness. So if you have that on the field and you can passively give really strong resonator swiftness, I could see some pretty good combos coming off of that. The total of 4 cost plus her not having swiftness to do that right away might be a bit of a detriment, especially considering how low her attack and defense is, but we'll see if there's some other cards that go with it. Next is Nyarlathotep, the Realized Truth. So she's a 2-cost 4/6. She also has Will of Hope, and she also has Flying. And you can release the seal abilities of 5 cards and spell cards you control. So in case you also missed that, seal is an ability certain resonators and chants have. So if it has seal of 6, then you have to wait till you have 6 magic stones out, and then it releases whatever that ability is. So she passively releases the seal ability of fire cards and spells. So that is going to be extremely helpful depending on what seal abilities we'll end up seeing. And just the fact that it's Nyarlathotep, that's pretty awesome. She also has a 1 void cost ability where target J resonator you control gains plus 200 attack and minus 200 defense until end of turn. So that's just a good secondary ability, but obviously she's mainly going to be played for that passive of releasing those seal abilities. Next we got Red Riding Hood again. She's Red Riding Hood Rainbow to the Heaven. There's some really pretty artwork. She's a 4/4 Fairy Tale with Will of Hope, and she has Seal for 3, and so once you have 3 stones out, she gains Flying and Swiftness. So that goes really well with the previous cards we've seen, with such as previous Red Riding Hood and different things like that, that really combo off of the more magic stones you have, the more powerful they get. I think she would slot into those already created decks, as well as she would work well on her own just by being a 1-cost 4/4 that potentially later in the game would have Flying and Swiftness right off the bat. But yeah, with those stone decks, I think she would go really good in. Next is Rainbow Arrow. So this is a 1-cost chant with quick cast. So it deals 400 damage to target J resonator. So that's basically a slightly nerfed version of Lightning Strike. However, it does have an awakening. You can rest a recovered Red Riding Hood Rainbow to the Heavens. So that's this card right here. If you rest her, it deals 400 damage to every resonator your opponent controls other than this card's target. So essentially, as far as I can tell, it still does that initial 400 to target resonator and then 400 to every, so that the awakening, that second text, is just so you're not dealing 800 damage to the initial target. That threw me off for a sec, but yeah, so essentially if you rest this simple 1-cost right here, you are dealing 400 to their entire board. So it's like Flame King Shout, but cheaper, and you don't get the effect of Flame King Shout, obviously, of putting down a a resonator, but it also has quick cast, so that's actually really strong the more I'm thinking about it. I'm definitely slotting it into most of my decks probably. So next we have Blazing Floating Castle Refarth. So we got Refarth coming back finally. So it's a 2-cost addition where J resonators you control can block J resonators with flying. So it's similar to the 1-cost Wind Secluded Refuge, and as far as that first ability at least. It also has Seal 7, so once you have 7 stones, this ability will come into play, unless you have Nyarlathotep out, which this ability will unlock automatically. The ability is you can tap him and it deals 500 damage to target J Resonator. So not only is it passively giving your J Resonators the ability to block flyers, but it also is able to tap to deal 500 damage to J Resonators just whenever, as long as the seal is broken. So that's pretty awesome. It's not the strongest. Obviously, Wind Secluded Refuge saw a little bit of play, but not too much. So I feel like this might see a similar amount of play. Next, this is interesting. We're switching to green. Usually they only do one color, but so this is Melfi, Child of Refarth. So get more Melfi. She's a 1-cost 1/1 elf. So more for those elf decks. Get out of here. Shh. She's a Will of Hope again, and whenever another elf enters your field, you get to put a 100/100 counter on this card. So this, obviously, for very obvious reasons, will be extremely strong in feasting decks. Not only would you be running elves, especially if you're doing a high elf feasting deck where you actually run elf resonators, but just passively getting those elf tokens, you're constantly putting tokens on her. So even just playing her as your second card, or playing her and then playing a second one of her, would put a token on the previous elf, and then would bring out an elf token because of feasting and put a counter on each of these Melfi. So you will instantly have a 3 and a 2/2 Melfi with just 2 will plus an elf token. So that has the potential to be really strong, I think at least. Next we have Gelforce Pursuer Christie. So she's a 2-cost 5/6 elf with Will of Hope as well. And when she enters your field, you get to remove target Darkness Resonator from the game. So I think that's gonna once again also be slotted into a lot of elf or feasting decks, because being able to remove dark resonators from the game, not just into the field, would be extremely helpful, especially against, I know it's not played as much, but something like Fox being able to remove Monkey trapped in life so they can no longer use that effect could be really strong, as well as I assume other Darkness Resonators we're going to come across. It's an elf, so it triggers Melfi's ability as well. It's Will of Hope, so it works with that mechanic also. Yeah, I think that'll be good. Weird artwork I want to point out. No, don't text me. Shh. And okay, yeah. That's it. And so I'm pretty excited. I really love the monocolors. We're going back to that for a little bit at least. I'm going to be making quite a few monocolor decks. So I hope you guys enjoyed this sort of spoiler overview, and we'll see you guys next time.